Once more, thank you, participants, everyone, for joining us today in this session focused on careers in public policy. I am Sauraveshwar Sen, founder, Catalyst Learning Services, warmly welcoming all of you from all parts of the country or maybe outside the country too, to join us in this discussion to demystify public policy as a important decision, in our career planning forward. Little bit about Catalyst. Since 2011, at Catalyst, we have been trying to strengthen careers in the social sector and climate action by supporting, guiding, mentoring school, college, university graduates and working professionals, tying up with institutions, bringing in speakers like Dr. Tarun Arora, who share their experiences from the field, from the domain, from academia, and help all of us to understand and make better choices for a better tomorrow. People, planet, profit in an integrated format are our core philosophy at Catalyst. And all that we do, all that we plan, and all that we take forward always integrates people, planet, and profit together, to secure and sustain our future forward. So, on that note, it's my responsibility and also an honor to introduce Dr. Tarun Arora formally to all of you. Dr. Tarun Arora, by the way, is not a new guest for us. We have been associated with him for over the last 3 years now. So just before all of you were entering in, and I was kind of just trying to essentially rerun the Zoom hygiene that we talk about. Dr. Tarun was like, "Yeah, we are aware. We have done this before." So I guess that comfort is what we are all trying to seek in our way of doing our work forward. And we can't think of a better person than Dr. Tarun to steer us forward with his understanding of the domain of public policy. Dr. Tarun Arora, an associate professor at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy, focuses on development economics, particularly urban governance and public policy. In fact, Dr. Tarun, currently at Jindal School, is also given the responsibility to look into the career pathways. He is responsible for managing the internships and placements that we are going to discover through the discussion today. Before joining Jindal Global University, Dr. Tarun was at Christ University in Bangalore, where he established and led the MA Public Policy program. Prior to that, he worked at Janagraha Center for Citizenship and Democracy, Bangalore, where he had led one of India's largest urban governance projects in collaboration with Brown University, USA. Dr. Arora earned his PhD in economics from the for Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, focusing on international trade and competitiveness of India's textile industry. He has over 6 years of experience in field-based survey research in urban India, examining urban segregation and citizen participation from both the supply and demand perspectives. While at Christ University, Dr. Arora mentored numerous doctoral and graduate students. He also taught courses at various institutions, including Mount Carmel College in Bangalore. He completed his BA Honors in Economics from Delhi College of Arts and Commerce, University of Delhi in 2007. His MA in Economics in 2009 from the University of Hyderabad, and his MPhil in Economics in 2011, also from the University of Hyderabad. Dr. Tarun, thank you so much for taking out your time. We are in a weekday. We understand it is the usual working day for all of us, including you. And we really appreciate that you could take out your time and be with us. Thanks a lot for being here.
The pleasure is all mine and always mine. Sorry, Vishwa.
Thanks a lot. So, I just kind of want to start on a very specific note. I mean, because I really want to keep the session like a no frill but specific to the understanding of public policy, because this is not something that is entirely new to us. We have been brewing public policy as a career pathway over the last few years. Many of the participants out here who have joined this discussion have possibly a basic understanding. Even if they do not have, we will try to address public policy Dr. Tarun, through your eyes and through your lens, if you could begin by highlighting that what are the skills and competence that can be recognized for a career in public policy, because this is something that we keep hearing so much and being asked after by students, young graduates, even their families, their parents, they keep asking that, I mean, these are the skills that they possess. Can they work in the field of public policy? So, if you would like to highlight that, along with also through that discussion to begin with, if you can also distinguish between public policy and public administration, right? And also, if you can highlight the opportunities which are emerging from the public policy domain nowadays so that we can take it forward step by step. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Fantastic. I think it's a great start, Sarveshwar, and thank you so much everyone for taking time out just to understand what public policy is about. And I remember when we started this 3 years ago. At that point, I still remember it was pretty new just to talk about public policy, right? And we were discussing. I think and I always talked about public policy as a relatively new discipline, which is still finding its feet, right? And but now I think I can just tell you after 3 years, public policy has almost become a mainstream discipline, right? And I think the right start to to this question that you have is that why are people taking public policy first of all, right? And that's why is it becoming popular? Okay, and one thing which is, and I've spoken to a lot of students who come and they've taken up public policy as a course or as a professional course in different universities, and a lot of times they feel that public policy is actually a cheaper MBA. Okay, and they said, okay, because we don't want to do MBA, well, that's the reason we think public policy is a cheaper MBA and we can do that. And I'm sure that a lot of people who have joined here would agree to that somewhere, because it's partially true. And because public policy people is also like MBA is a subject agnostic discipline, right? And anybody from anywhere can come and join public policy. When I started MA public policy at Christ, we had people from engineering background, people from political science, people from sociology, people from law, right? Across all disciplines, people were coming in MA public policy. And I said, why are you people joining public policy? I mean, what is this one thing that you people think that you can actually make a career in public policy? And at that point, I still remember when we started this discussion 3 years ago, and I was having this discussion with somebody, and I told, I think it's still public policy. There are jobs but no career. And I'm now going to take this statement back. Right now, you can actually make a career in public policy, and it's absolutely possible and absolutely feasible, right? And so, coming to your question, Saraveshwar, I think what you just talked about is uh, that what are the skills that you require? First of all, the skill in public policy is actually, is a skill that you bring in before you join public policy. It's always very, very important, because if you've done a UG in sociology, that's actually your skill. Don't think that, okay, this is because I've joined public policy, I need a separate skill altogether. It's actually your UG that you've done. It's actually the kind of lens that you bring in to look at the public policy from that perspective. And that is actually your right skill. That's the beginning of the skill that you're going to bring in the public policy sector or organization that you're going to join in. For example, when I joined the public policy sphere, I was an economist. When I joined as an economist, I brought in a lot of economics understanding to public policy. Right? Economic understanding, when I said economic understanding, because I was very comfortable with data, right? I was doing a lot of data work, doing a lot of econometric skills. So that exactly I did it, brought in to the work that I was doing with my previous organization called Janagra, which was lacking there because nobody economist had joined public policy back then. So what discipline that you are coming from? The best thing about public policy is very accommodating of your discipline. Never feel shy that you're coming from a particular discipline that you don't have a public policy skill. Public policy will accommodate all the kind of disciplines that you people are bringing in from a UG level, right? So feel confident about that. Okay. So the public policy problem that we're going to look at, we're going to look at exactly from different lenses, and that's the beauty of public policy. Now coming to very specific skills that we need, okay, which is actually now coming up, which are becoming very, very popular. So when you talk about public policy, what is public policy at the first time, right? When you do a policy intervention for that matter, people have been making policy interventions and people have been doing policy intervention for ages. It's not something which is very new, right? Right. So right since the India became independent, there have been policy interventions, right? But now people are realizing what is an impact of a policy intervention. Okay, so a new sector or a new skill which is getting emerged within public policy is how to actually evaluate the impact of public policy. Like for example, there are a lot of jobs on MEL, which we call monitoring and evaluation and learning. Okay, so there's a lot of people who are coming in and they said, okay, can we please take up some skills in MEL, right? So I definitely recommend that you can, when you join public policy, take up this particular subset within public policy called MEL and take up and start doing working or towards that. The second skill that you people need is, of course, that you're coming from a particular discipline, but within the discipline, you need to actually specify an area of expertise. Okay. Now it's time that you actually start following up. Okay, this is my area of expertise going to be. Like, for example, my area of expertise, which became was urban. My cities, I was right looking at cities, policies who are actually policies which are, which are being implemented to improve the quality of life in cities. So that became my area, and I started using those skills in that particular domain. Okay, so the domain is also very, very important. So start figuring out which domain that you want to work in. Okay, and then start collecting those skill set, like a bouquet of skills, which will help you in that particular domain. Okay, so once you have those things, first within the domain, what kind of skill set? Like for example, if I start working in domain, I need to understand how the urban policies are evaluated and monitored. Right, that could be even a small subset, even a specific subset within urban domain that you can work. Right, but before that, use your skill, which is your UG background. Always remember that that's always your strength, because it's always looked at those things from your UG background. If you're an engineer, and definitely you can do wonders in public policy. People think that I'm an engineer, what can I do in public policy? You won't believe half of the public policy is run by engineers right now. Okay. For example, there's a company called Rapido, there's a company called Uber, there's a company called Zomato. They're actually hiring people who are engineers. Then they did some certificate course in public policy just to understand how these things that we've done are applied in those contexts, and they're working there, right? So it's always possible that whichever discipline that you come from, to come in public policy and apply those skills. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I mean, Dr. Tarun, because you are associated with managing the internships and then the placements now at JGU, and when it comes to internships or placements, if we can maybe create certain broad categorization, of course, there can be overlaps also, like whether you're working in the a public sector organization or a private sector or a non-profit organization. When it comes to the field of public policy, do you see that there is any distinct difference in the approach when it comes to public policy uh, connected with, or public policy implementation or public policy advocacy connected with working with these type of entities? Because sometimes, students keep asking us and aspirants keep asking us that what should be our goal setting and expectation setting, right, in the environment of work that we are in, or while we are trying to get into an internship. So do you see that there is any difference that you would like to highlight, say working in the public sector or private sector or even non-profit organizations um, in the field of public policy? If
Great question. Yeah, great question, Sarveshwar. I think I was just recently having this conversation with one of the people that we have at OP Chintalan. I think remember that the person who was responsible for the overall placement of the university, and he was asking me, what should I do about public policy? And I answered this question in, okay, this way. Okay, for example, when you want to make an entry into public policy, there are going to be four, four pathways. Okay. So first of all, when you want to enter like a career and make up a career in public policy, first thing that you can always enter is, of course, that's something which you call consultancies. So these big fours, which we call, right, they are actually big time into public policy now. Okay, because they know that there are a lot of people who are like a lot of government sector people. They need people to actually fill in the space that is called project management. Okay. So within public policy, when they're like, for example, Swachh Bharat mission right now is completely run by KPMG. Okay. So they say, what, okay, we need to hire people or hire these private entities who eventually will hire public policy people. Okay. So a lot of public policy people are joining EY, KPMGs, and all those big fours, which are eventually helping the government sector in implementing their own programs. But why would KPMG and all those people will hire somebody from a public policy and not an MBA? That's the right question. And that's a
right.
very, very important question. For example, when you people join in and say, okay, we are a public policy, how can we have an upper hand from somebody who's in an MBA? Okay. First of all, you always understand that public policy people always will have an edge when it comes to government programs. And why? Because public policy people exactly know where the government's capacity constraints are, which an MBA doesn't know. Okay. So you can always tell them, okay, I exactly know government will always have constraints. Okay. And the governments have constraints. I know that public policy, as a public policy person, how to navigate those constraints. Okay. So once we know that, I mean, we'll convince these big four people that, okay, I know these are the constraints that are always existing with you people. We know how to manage those constraints and also work with those constraints and get you the best output possible. That's where you will always be given a preference over an MBA, right? So once you join these people, you will be, of course, given a lot of work in terms of project management, which will be okay. What are the deadlines? All these intervention programs, probably evaluations as well. You probably will work with direct an IAS officer or somebody who's working with them, right? So all those things can happen. So that's one way of entering the public policies phase. Apart from this, which is of course which is working directly with the government, there are a lot of organizations I said like Zomato, Uber, all they have a public policy vertical within their organizations now. So what are they doing? Let's understand that. For example, Zomato for that matter. Okay. And Zomato, what do they do? They will hire a public policy person just to understand what's happening in the government ecosystem and how can we leverage that. For example, when India launched something called India's Millet Mission, a public policy person who has a 360-degree understanding of what's happening around the government ecosystem or generally the policy ecosystem. This person will tell the Zomato person, I think we can leverage this and we can actually do very good with the government in this case. And how can we do this? He said, look a list of all the dishes which are there at our Zomato platform, which are millet based. And what we can do is we can give them a 5% extra discount. So that we are in a way, we are actually helping the government promote the millet mission. So that's a job of a public policy professional. And that's exactly what they're going to liaise in with the government as well. So that's something which is actually becoming very, very popular these days. Same is with Uber, same is with any other organization, right? So that's what's happening. Like for example, Rapido, they will say, okay, we are promoting EV, so they will bring an EV fleet, right? All those things will happen, right? So that's exactly which is becoming very, very popular now. As another space where public policy professionals can specifically are going is our political consultancies, big time. Because public policy people, when they're getting the training in the institutes like Jindal, Christ University, or any other institute for that matter, they're getting very good survey skills, right? And IPAC people, for example, or any other people for that matter, or organization, they look for those survey skills that people have been trained with. So, and they can use that for their campaigns and what's happening and all that. Journalism and media is one place where public policy people can go in because they want somebody to set the narrative for them. When they set the narrative, they also need to understand somebody who has a 360 understanding of all the stakeholders that can get influenced by a public policy or a media narrative for that matter. So even that public policy will always have a strength because they know how the agenda is set, what kind of people around us are there, you know, and how what kind of people will get influenced by that. So all those things will always be there. That's the reason public policy person will always have an edge over that because they know the process of how the policy is made and the process of who is getting affected by how much. Right. So that's the understanding. Right. So these are the skills that you people need, and these are the pathways that you can enter in public policy domain. Yeah.
Okay. So then how do we distinguish, kind of with all of these points between, say, a public administration,
Yeah.
because that's like, part of a curriculum for many people
Absolutely.
nowadays.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
part of a chapter in political science also in several
Yes. Yes.
syllabus. Then what
Yeah.
would be the distinction between public administration and public policy to you?
Yes. So public administration and public policy. See, so public administration is a very logical next step after public policy, and I tell you how.
Yeah.
For example, let me take in urban as well. Whenever the policy is made, and I just gave an example of when they have to speak to multiple stakeholders, a lot of push and pull will happen and everything, right? Multiple stakeholders will be consulted. When the policy is done, policy is made. When you said, okay, this is the policy that I'm going to implement, the implementation part is done by the public administrator. Okay. This is exactly where public administrators will come in. This is where public administrators or public managers will come in. There's also a stream called public management, which is becoming very popular. Okay. So these managers will exactly based on exactly what the capacity constraints of the government are, they will start working. And they'll look, and we need to understand how to implement this policy in the best possible way. So whatever the gaps in the implementation part is, that is exactly where the public managers will come in. But when it comes to evaluation of those policies, eventually public policy people will come back.
Right.
Okay, we've done the policy, you people have implemented the policy, but how the policy is done, Let's get back to the policy people, how they how the monitoring has been done, how the evaluation has been done. So that's the difference, guys.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned about evaluation, which also is an integral aspect of understanding, if I can use the efficacy of policy, right? To what
Absolutely,
extent
absolutely.
is it being effective enough to reach our collective targets, right? Uh, a natural question coming to our mind on behalf of the aspirants, if I would like to ask Dr. Tarun, is that when it comes to evaluation, it would involve data research, certain quantitative techniques, maybe analytical understanding. We see several aspirants, Dr. Tarun, coming from backgrounds where they have been mathematically a little bit challenged, yet they are very keen to be in the public policy sector, and specifically they are also equally keen to measure. They want to measure, but then they kind of take a two steps backwards
Mhm.
because the mathematical challenges kind of come in their way. How would you like to address this? Like, say at Jindal, people come from various disciplines, and you have had stints with academic institutes even in before. How do you all get them together on a level playing ground, if you would like to
Absolutely.
help us understand?
Absolutely. Again, a great question, Sarveshwar. The point is that, okay, somebody wants to make a career in evaluation for that matter, and they are not very mathematically or quant savvy, as we can say that, right? And they're not very quant savvy or mathematically trained. But okay, they first of all, monitoring and evaluation can be done in a qualitative way as well. It's not something which is a hard and fast rule that you need to do use those data techniques only. But if you know those data techniques, it's something which is a great thing to have. There are a lot of online certification programs which are there, by the way. So which are actually going to help somebody who's absolutely has no understanding of monitoring and evaluation can actually gain understanding from that. Just to name one, there's just and I was just studying for few of my students. There's a program which is offered by JPAL.
Right.
Okay, it's called Evaluating Social Programs. Okay, which is run every year. Okay, that's something you can always enroll in yourself into. So there are many such programs which are annually which are offered, right? And this is actually from somebody who has no understanding of mathematics before. So they will train you from zero point zero, and they will take you to the level that actually you can use those skill sets to understand how the monitoring and evaluation is done. So it also is a function of which organization you join. When an organization is absolutely fine with qualitative techniques, why do you have to bother, right? And this demand of qualitative and quantitative sometimes comes from donors. Okay. It's actually very donor driven exercise. For example, when a donor says that I've given you money for this intervention, what is the impact that this intervention has created? Give me a report. As long as he's okay with the qualitative report, he'll be more than happy, isn't it? And if you can do this, for example, this particular thing, but they would exactly know how much quantitative impact that we have created. For example, there's a program called Civic Education Program. Okay, I funded your civic education program. I want to see what was the level before, now what is the level now. Was it before 7%? Now it has gone to 14%, 15%. I need the exact difference. In that case, you will have to have the quantitative skills, right? But learning these quantitative skills these days is not something which is that's something which is very laborious job or a boring job. Trust me, there are programs which are offering you these things. Like for example, very soon I'll be offering a program, something on a skill set on survey skills or something. Feel free to join in. So I do this with CPPR every year. So feel free to join in as well. So there are many such programs which are offered in public domain that you can join in and understand these things, right? So, but if you have some basic quantitative skills, when I say basic quantitative skills, people understand R, Python. Honestly, these things are not required. Public policy is not that mature that you really need R and Python and all those coding things. Get an understanding of basic Excel. Okay. Whenever I've hired interns in my previous organization, I never ask them whether you know Python, you know R. Do you know basic Excel? Can you run this data for me? Can you run some pivot tables for me? Do you know some if functions? Can you do all? Trust me, 90% of a development sector job can be done by these functions itself. So whenever people say, "Oh no, we need to know GIS, we need to know R, we need to know Python," of course, it's a great to have these skills. But honestly, the sector is not that developed right now. Probably the donors don't expect that much those fancy skills from you because donors they a simple kind of a data chart, an infographic from you, which will very simply tell, okay, how much impact an organization has created. Right? As long as you know those basics, because these things can be done on Excel as well. So don't get just bamboozled by, okay, if I don't know R, if I don't know Python, will I be able to survive in something like a development sector? Trust me, just have a good understanding of Excel. Good to, if you know R Python, it's a great thing to have. If you don't have, don't worry.
Great. Okay, that I hope would be a nice relief to many, because we do see, Dr. Tarun, um, um, a variety of uh, possibly, I will not call it literature, but I kind of expectation that is set looking at the level of competence and skill needed to thrive in the domain of public policy. And these questions equally come from people, Dr. Tarun, who have been deep into their professional careers. Maybe they have been working as a coder and a programmer 5 to 7 years,
Mm,
and now looking at things around them, many of them try to find, quote unquote, a more purpose driven opportunity, and want to say transit to public policy jobs. Is there anything that you would like to share with such working professionals trying to transit to the field of public policy?
absolutely. So there's a massive migration happening from the corporate sector to the public policy space. And as I said, a lot of work which is done in the policy space is getting outsourced to the corporate people.
Mm.
From the corporate jobs themselves, they get exposed to that. And public policy space is a very exciting space. I mean, there's absolutely no harm in leaving your routine jobs, those legacy jobs that we call, to something which is absolutely new and exciting, isn't it? So if you think that public policy excites you, there's absolutely no shouldn't be stopping yourself. Get a job into public policy, understand what's happening, right? So if you want to make, of course, as I said, somebody who's a data coder, who's done data science all his life or all her life, right? In fact, you can exactly join those organizations which are using data, right? So, for example, there are organizations like, uh, I don't know whether I can name those, but there are organizations like Outline India or something, right? There's an which is outside based in Gurgaon, I think that's what they are. They promote their tagline as that we are the data-driven organization and which are helping in public policy making. So there are many such organizations which are working on these things, right? Which is specific to your skill, and you can just join those people and help in that, isn't it? So when an organization requires somebody who's absolutely good with data, like Python, R, who can handle heavy data sets, big data sets, right? Because when you talk about public policy, it's all big data because the amount of people that you're going to run the policy on, it's a large number of people. Right? When you monitor and evaluate the impact of the policy, of course, you are going to take a large chunk of people to take a survey for you. And when the data comes in, you need to use all the kind of tools that is available at you for you. And if an organization is exactly working on those areas or those data sets, then you have the right skills, then absolutely feel free to go in and jump in there. Right? But you should know which organization. Always make a series set of organization that you get, which is doing the kind of work that you, the kind of skills that you have, right? Those organizations are requiring those skills. Sometimes we end up taking skills and we don't have those organizations which are using those skills, right? So that particular always sometimes you just target an organization and work towards that organization. How can I set in? Like so, my always Janagara was always my dream organization to work with, right? And I was an economist from the beginning, isn't it? Because what did I do, right? But I said, okay, if domain is not matching, skill should match. Okay. Sometimes we think, okay, domain should match. No, domain is not something which is sometimes will match always. But if the skill set is matching, there is also an entry point for you guys. Okay. So always remember there are two entry points. Either is matching the skill set side or the domain side. One should match so that you can enter the public policy. It will open the door for you guys.
Right. Thank you. See, half an hour into the session, I will have one final question for Dr. Tarun, and we'll open the discussion for questions which we have already started receiving from our participants. Dr. Tarun, if you would like to just highlight what are some of the most pressing issues in public policy today, as per your understanding, and how can young professionals and all of the participants who have joined in can make a difference to that, if you would like to highlight? And also, along with it, any advice, because we don't want to give this advice at the fag end of the session, because people, can be a little bit more tired than before, but I want to take this advice right in the middle of this session so that it stays with us longer. An advice that I would like to give to the students and young professionals who are passionate about making a positive impact through public policy. So, some of the pressing issues that you feel young people can address and solve, and also an advice that I would like to share right in the middle of the session to people passionate about making a difference with public policy.
Fantastic, brilliant. So when somebody said, okay, pressing issues. Okay, now since I'm an associate dean with career and placements, let me answer that from the placement perspective. Because if there's a pressing issue, there's always a job demand there, right? So it has to be a pressing issue so that people can start working on that issue, and there's automatically there is a requirement for people who can work on that issue. One is definitely urban, right? And cities are becoming inevitable. Every kind of uh, people who are coming to cities and the kind of issues the cities are facing, which is like supply demand gap in terms of infrastructure, which also sort of encompasses your climate change, sustainable cities, all those things that are now becoming a very, very urban subject. And there are a lot of organizations which are coming in or working on actually solving just the urban issues. Okay, Janagra is one of those, WRI is one of those, right? So we're very, very focused on urban cities, right? And urban is definitely one of the areas that you can work in. Second, which is a very, very pressing area which is coming in, is something called health. A lot of public policies are actually made around the health area or the scope of health or domain of health for that matter. Third area, which is very, very quickly coming up, is called energy. Okay, energy is one other area that you can actually energy policies around India. And the fourth area, which I can see also has picked up big time in the last 4 or 5 years, is tech and public policy. Like what's happening in technology, right? When technology, which is your ethical AIs and everything which is coming in, how to regulate that, because it's just expanding like crazy, right? Everybody is talking about AI, but there are no such strong, robust policies to regulate something called in AI, isn't it? So what kind of policies can be made? So there are a lot of people who are asking about these things, and a lot of organizations which are specializing in these things. So look for those organizations, look out for those areas that you can work on. Climate change, I still feel is a very, very pressing issue, but kind of getting saturated because a lot of people have understood this for the last 20 years and they're working on those areas, right? So think about it, which area do you think that, of course, you're passionate about, and also where jobs are. And what's also understand what is the government's priority as well. Okay. When the government is talking about EV policy, you also have to align your interest towards that. Okay. So that you can know that, okay, this is once a lot of policy changes will happen in this area, and there'll be a lot of demand for us in that area. So based on that, you can always align and start working towards building your resume and grab a job and opportunity in that space, right? And second thing, which is about the advice, right? So Ravishwar, I think it's, I think, what should I advise? Because should I give it to you people? I think if you've taken this particular journey, and I always told my students, why have you taken public policy and why not an MBA, right? And it's always understand this. There has to be, I mean, your heart has to be at the right place. I mean, and that's something which I've always told. Public policy is something which can impact millions in one shot, right? If you get the policy right, and you are the people who are working at the back, and if the policy implementation has gone absolutely right, I mean, you can impact so many lives that you can't even imagine. So put your money consideration at the back, put the cause at the front, and that's would be the right step to work in the public policy. When you enter the public policy and you ask what kind of package we're going to get after masters, I mean, that's not the right question to start. I'm being very, very honest. What kind of impact that we can make? That's the right question to start with public policy. If you're talking about package, do an MBA. If you talk about cause, do a public policy. That's exactly the right way to start with public policy. Okay. If your cause is clear, your heart is at the right place, then take a jump into public policy. Otherwise, don't. Okay. Because that's where you're going to social, your understanding, social equity, all those social pressing issues that we talk about. This is where we're going to resolve them. Okay. And that's exactly where, of course, they're going to be eventually money. We all have needs. It's not that eventually money will come in, but it should always be behind the cause, not ahead of the cause. Right? That was my first and foremost advice to you people. And always be ready to do some, like for example, in any organization, in even in public policy, 75% of the work will be very exciting. 25% of the work will be not very exciting, right? The moment you join, it won't be that you will be given the greatest of the work. Of course, you will start your career with the grunt work, and that's happening with everywhere. The moment you prove that, okay, I'm excited about this particular skill, you also grab the skills which is around happening, get those right certifications and those right skills. Automatically, you will get the seat at the table, and eventually, you will start contributing in a big way, right? So that's something which are two pieces of advice you can always start. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I think that would really ring few bells, we hope. Moving forward to the questions, Dr. Tarun,
Mhm.
I will take the first question from Prachi. Prachi is still there, I hope, in our session. Prachi had asked in the chat box that she has done a master's in public administration. Can I have a career in public policy? That's Prachi's question.
Absolutely, Prachi. I think, as I said, public administration is always the logical next step to the public policy. You've already taken the next step. Now you have to take just one step behind, isn't it? So it's absolutely possible that you take up, you know, public career in public policy. A lot of people who are working in public administration, who are actually UPSC aspirants and have an optional paper called public administration, and if they've actually done, probably could not succeed in public administration as an optional UPSC, are getting back to public policy to make those jobs, right? So that's something which is always possible. Please, if you think that your public policy is absolute, you're an absolute natural person who can enter the pub. Just do few certifications and understanding the nomenclature of public policy, or like simple things like policy cycle, how policies are made, and everything. Once you're done with those, I think you're absolutely set. Not an issue at all. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll take another question. We're just being a little going back and forth with the questions just to help cover the broad areas. Kreet is with us. Yeah, Kreet is also has put on your video. Kreet asks a question, Dr. Tarun, that how is public policy different from public policy combined with law?
Hmm. Great. Right. So if you have public policy and law, right, that's an unbeatable mix. Okay. So that's something which you can always remember, right? I don't know how many of you know this Venn diagram that you people have studied in your mathematics 11th, 12th standard. That you take those three rings and enter the gray area, which is like the intersection of all those things. And I always tell my students here that you need to create at least those three rings for yourself. Two, everybody would have. Some people will have one. Two, mostly people will have. And they're also as good as to enter the public policy market. But if you have three, then you are like in top 1% of the things, right? For example, when you know law, you're a lawyer by training, by profession, and you know data, and also you know policy, then who can beat you? Then you are the most sought after person in the entire public policy space. So you need to get at least three rings for yourself or three circles for yourself, and you have to sit right at the intersection of those skills. Once you have those, brilliant.
Wonderful. I hope, Kreet, that helps answer your question. Moving forward, I wanted to share this question, which has been asked by Mangesh. How can one land in a job in public policy with no degree in it? I have internship experiences and courses done. Also, Mangesh asks Dr. Tarun that is it suggestible or advisable to join masters in public policy or work on my skills, possibly on in a job or through an internship to eventually become a public policy professional, if I can.
It's a great question. I think this is something which is coming to me so many times from so many people. I mean, like for example, if you have gained an experience for 5 years in public policy and you're not a public policy person, you are way ahead of an MA public policy person. I'm telling you right away. Everybody will actually pick you because you are a real practitioner of public policy rather than academic. Okay. So know the practical challenges of public policy. So I would say if you do 4 internships of 6 months in public policy, you are actually better than an MA public policy grad. I know I'm harming our own chances of people coming to public policy, but yes. So, but thing is, when I say good internships, meaning they have to be really good internships, which means that you've really worked on public policy making, and you've been very lucky to get somebody who's actually an MA public policy like becomes a mentor for you in those organizations. has actually trained you with all the traits which are nuances of public policy, then great. But if you have those done those internships which are absolutely no use, come to MA Public Policy, fill those gaps, and get back to the career market after that.
Great. Thanks, Mangesh, for asking that question. Just moving forward, Dr. Tarun, Seena, who's with us, Seena has a question where she mentions that she's currently a policy researcher, um, and then she wants to work with a prominent think tank like ORF, Observer Research Foundation, for around 2 years. And her final goal is to be with an international organization such as the United Nations. So she wants to seek your advice. What we understand, Sina, is possibly your at this moment you intend to eventually work with a multilateral like the UN. So, Dr. Tarun, your take on it. How can
Hmm.
someone proceed if they have a goal setting of that order to be with a multilateral like the UN?
Fantastic. I think, see, a lot of global policies are made at the UN level, isn't it? So it's again a lot of times when I speak to people, I think it's not about sometimes the skills that you think are required to take you to the UN or any level for that matter. Sometimes it's about your networks as well, which I have been telling people that it's one of the most underrated skills right now. Now, you're working with ORF for the last 2 years. I'm sure that you know people who are working with UN, right? I mean, just get on your LinkedIn, search people, drop them an email, drop them a message. I'm sure there's a lot of alignment, right? If you message about 100 people, 10 will surely get back to you, and one will probably will be the most useful person who can take you there, right? So please feel free to explore your network, and if you already have the kind of work experience that probably UN requires, and the skills that you probably require, a lot of time you land up in these jobs through networks, right? And not something else. It's not something that you need something super crazy. No, sometimes it's just about the networks. Of course, if you have a good degree from a prominent institution, really helps, which is recognized. It absolutely helps. But if not, if you have the relevant experience, if relevant skills, and also the relevant network, as I said again, the three things, right? In that, if you fit in there, great, works, and you can of course land up a job in UN. No problem.
I completely agree with Dr. Tarun on the networking end. One of the truly underrated skill, but it's networking through which possibly I know Dr. Tarun, through LinkedIn, and that's how we connected. And
Yes,
and since we came to know each other, a couple of messages in the chat box, I don't think there was any looking back. We have done sessions, we have interacted. I guess we keep in touch constantly. So I think along with networking, the relationship building, through with your contacts, irrespective of whether you are seeking an opportunity or not, is equally important, because humans thrive through relationships at the end of the day.
absolutely.
Right. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Dr. Tarun, and thank you for asking that question. I will come to Bharat Rajan. Bharat, I know you have been raising your hands for quite some time, and I hope it's not hurting. If you would like to use your microphone, because we would love to hear a participant's voice. You have written your question in the text box, but if you would like to use the mic, Bharat, and ask Dr. Tarun the question directly, thank you.
Yeah, am I audible?
You are audible, Bharat. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So basically, I'm a mechanical engineer. I did two fellowship in public policy. One is IAC fellowship and more on education, like Teach for India is what I did. So I wish to proceed my career in public policy, but I don't have any degree uh, currently. So should if I want to go ahead in a career path in a good position or something, should I definitely have a public policy degree or can I get an MBA? Is that enough? Because I like to be in development sector. Like that's the first question. And second question is, how can we get into corporates that you mentioned, like Zomato, other energy domains? Because I don't see any openings being mentioned outside about this kind of roles available. So how can we get into that? Like, what are the skills and what are the graduation they require for this?
Okay, so coming to your first question, Bharat, I think you're a mechanical engineer, if I heard you right, isn't it? Hello, I think he's a mechanical
Ah,
engineer,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. I'm a
okay, fair
mechanic.
enough. You're a mechanical engineer, but you also said that you've done a few fellowships as well, which is in public policy, isn't it? So you've done your few public policy. It means that you are on the right track if you want to make a career switch. Okay. So now the point is, if you want to do these fellowships, sometime a postgraduate degree helps. Okay, that you have a postgraduate degree in policy. Okay, if you already have one, then just focus on the fellowships. Don't do another MA. Doesn't help. But if you don't have a master's, then I think really strongly suggest that you do a master's. Okay, because your discipline is very different from what is required. Okay, so that your basic understanding of public policy has to be built from scratch. Okay, once you build those concepts, build those skills, build your understanding of public policy from scratch, a lot of like OPs and there are a lot of people who are coming in are from 6 years, 7 years of experience, completely from a different field altogether, and they join in just to understand what public policy nuances are. Right? If you can do that, that would be great. But sometimes if you have done so much and you have so much of experience, the opportunity cost of doing a master's is very high in this case, isn't it? So what I will again suggest to you is do again a fellowship, which could be an online fellowship that you can do. Okay, do an online fellowship and do which is again which will tell you what policy making is, right? But the point about when you do post graduation in an organization like OPGindal or any other organization for that matter, is again that you kind of create a cohort of yourself, right? You meet a cohort, and you also have an access to something called an alumni network. Okay, where are they? What are they doing, and all that. So once you land yourself into a postgraduate program of high caliber, you always understand that okay, there are alumni people that I can access to, alumni network that I can access to. So that will actually that switch that you're always looking for will become very easy, right? So that you can always do that, make get an access to an alumni network, and always, of course, keep looking at the jobs on LinkedIn and everything. The third part, I think you just talked about Zomato and all those places, right? That how do you look for those jobs? I think they're absolutely public on LinkedIn, and every day when I put this public policy energy, there are 50 jobs which are just on LinkedIn, which just pop up, right? Look at see sometimes we just look at those jobs, we don't actually put attention, give attention to the JD that they have. Look at the JD job description that they have. They always mention the kind of skills that they're looking for, right? If you really want to make a career in that, look at the JD, just read that JD, and start working towards those skills. Sometimes those skills are probably just a certificate skill, probably it's just a small gap that you have. And one certification can build that gap, right? Sometimes it requires a proper holistic understanding of public policy making. For that, probably you need to do another master's, right? So all those things you just understand where you want to go, which sector you want to go. As I said again, sometimes it is about the skill, sometimes it's about the sector. Some people just read a very specific sectoral expertise, and they just need somebody who's worked on energy, right? Energy because it has its own vocabulary, own policy challenges, it has own policy history, all that thing they're looking for. For example, in my previous organization, we were looking for somebody who's worked on sustainability. And trust me, we couldn't find anyone. Then finally, we found one who has done one certification in sustainability, and we took him. Right? So that's how it was. It worked like that. Right? Because he was the one. Because through certification, when we interviewed, he actually showcased that he knows the vocabulary of sustainability and all that stuff. Right? That's something which we can always focus on. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarun, for answering the question, and I hope that helps. Just moving forward, I noticed a question, and I hope Prajesh is still here with us. Prajesh, you had asked a question trying to link the aviation sector with public policy. If you can use your microphone, would you like to just elaborate that what type of experience have you gathered working with the aviation sector, Prajesh?
Hi, sir.
Right.
Good evening. Sir, actually, I done aeronautical engineering and I work aviation sector for the operations. So, how can it helps in public policy? So,
Why do you want to make that switch, Prajesh? I want to just have this interaction with you right now. Okay, you worked in the aviation sector. Okay. What is that one thing that is attracting you towards the policy space? Why? Why do you want to make that switch?
no, Means like I need to. There are policy for everything. So there are certain things I need to develop in the policy sectors. So that's why, sir.
No, absolutely. So I'm just asking you, like, just a generic question, like, since if you have an established career in aviation, the one that you talked about, why do you want to make a switch to public policy? Of course, it is exciting, right?
Uh,
But always
even
remember that when, yeah, go ahead.
yes, sir. Yeah, proceed, sir. So,
No, exactly. So if you want to come to public policy, again, I mean, I've already answered that question. The point is that keep the aviation skill that you have, because when I say aviation skill, it means that you have the background of that sector. The background of that sector is so clear in your mind because you've worked in that sector so well, isn't it? Because a
yes,
lot
sir.
of people who come as a policymaker who are completely raw, they don't have the sectoral context. You have that sectoral context and build on that. Now, what you need is you have the sectoral context, but you don't have those policy skills. So build on the
Yes.
policy skills, and of course, it's a great combination there, right? Don't think that okay, the sectoral expertise I have is of absolutely no use. Sectoral expertise is the strongest suit that you have, and build on that and just move ahead.
Okay, okay, sir. But should I need an like masters in public policy or MBA for this policy sectors which I need to enter?
For public policy, don't need an MBA to be honest. Probably you need a master's. Yes, sometimes probably you need that. If you or probably you can just do some fellowships. The people that have been talked about, people have been talking about a short kind of a capsule course about 6 months. A lot of okay, so a lot of people who are actually working. Just to give you an idea, that we also offer an online MA public policy. Okay, so a lot of
Okay.
organizations are offering MA public policy online, like on Coursera. That after
Yes,
two
sir.
years, you can get an MA degree from OP Jindal online, which is
Okay.
absolutely as good as what the degree that we talk about. If you think that residential programs is going to have a very high opportunity cost for you people, go for these programs which are online, so that you can actually keep working in the area that you're working in, and side by side you develop your policy skills. And whenever the time is right, you just make that switch.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay. Okay, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was
Pretty impressive. We did
interesting.
skip
Yeah,
into that
yes.
person's question.
Yeah. Uh, just coming to the point Dr. Tarun mentioned about the online public policy program offered at Opijindal. I guess that's something which many professionals or otherwise also can consider. Keeping in mind the schedule that they're in, there can be varied responsibilities, right, in everyone's lives in terms of how they are planning and navigating through their career, and they do not compromise on any of it. Actually, it is actually a great way. Dr. Tarun, I guess we would like to sum the session up because you're representing the the role of a dean from Jindal Global University. We understand it has its own history, being the first school of public policy in India. And just wanted to know from your end, Dr. Tarun, if any of us in this session and beyond are looking to apply to OP Jindal Global University, what are the evaluation methods that you look at currently as far as the application into the regular programs of public policy is concerned? If you would like to just share with us those points.
Great. I think that's again a great question. Thank you, Saraveshwar, for that. And when we try to hire students in our program, okay, that's something we, as I mentioned very clearly, we look at the passion, that why you're coming in. We always look at why you have a clarity of why you are making that switch. Okay, you got to convince us, okay, that when you come into public policy, masters in public policy, there's a very strong reason backing that decision. Okay, and the reason cannot be okay, a very random reason. Okay, this college is very close to my place. That's the reason I'm coming in. Right? That can't be a reason. Right? Convenience can be a reason to join in public policy. In fact, there is a sense of urgency in public policy. Please understand that. Right? If you have a sense of urgency in terms of if you get ruffled by what's happening around you, that's something which you should get rattled by that, and you want to really make a policy change. That's the right place, and then you have to convince us that you are exactly that person. Okay. And once you convince us with that, okay. And of course, the skill I said, we don't looking for specific skills. This is exactly where you're going to develop those skills. Thing that we're looking is your passion and your clarity in terms of your career. Okay, this is the reason that I'm coming in, and that's when anyone wants to convince us, you're through. Okay, so be very, very clear why you making that switch from your, if you have an existing career, why you making that switch. If you're planning a career in public policy, why you want to make a career in public policy. Okay, because these are the questions we're going to ask you, right? And be a little logical. I mean, that's something which is called logical reasoning. We're not going to give you logical reasoning questions. The point is, when we ask you something, you should be logical and also explaining what your thought process is. That's something we always understand, because policy making is also about articulating what your thought process is. And that's something we always look at. Yeah. As I said, barring no data skill, nothing, if you don't have, absolutely not a problem. This is exactly the place that we always welcome people from diverse disciplines, diverse skills, diverse backgrounds, right? And that's exactly what makes public policy so unique.
Wonderful. And what is the usual cycle of like enrollment or intake or admission in a given calendar year?
I think the admissions will be starting next year, and which is sometime, I think, June. That's what I feel, and they go on till August, September, I believe. That's what the process looks like. I also have not so much clarity on, but because I can share it offline with you, and you can share it with the participants.
Yeah, I think we can always share that back with the participants.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it goes without saying that public policy is a tool that we all require and we are already part of. I don't think none of us are functioning without being part of a policy framework, anyhow. And professionals who work in this domain and sector are only going to strengthen our roots. Thank you, Dr. Tarun, for sharing some very simplified yet moving aspects of our understanding towards public policy. I understand participants also, you will maybe getting more questions in your head, which you would like to address in the coming days also, maybe even through Dr. Tarun if possible. And we can always share, and you can always look up to even Jindal's website and web page with all the information that they have corroborated together. Thanks, participants, for your questions, because everyone brought in the diversity that Dr. Tarun also was talking about with the public policy sector and the domain. And really appreciate everyone's interest to understand more about the sector. Thank you, Dr. Tarun, once more, spending over an hour with us. And it's always a pleasure knowing, interacting, understanding the newer hats that you are also wearing, and we look forward to interact more with you and interface with the sector of public policy in the coming days. And we will be sharing a feedback form to everyone so that we can capture more questions and queries, which we can always run even via Dr. Tarun as much as possible. Thank you so much once more, participants.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. I think it was a lovely session. I think the kind of questions that you brought in, and this is exactly the right questions that in the right age that you're asking. And I'm happy that I could answer a few of those.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure for all of us. Thank you, participants, once more. Stay well, stay connected, stay safe. All the best. Thank you.